Welcome back to where we pick another country and try to offend those people.
Spin the board and see what comes up. Sorry, Kenya. Today's your day. No. Yep.
Yeah, well, that went over well yesterday. I think I heard from every listener in the land down under.
Well, they are
nice people. I don't know what you're going to say, but that answer better be nice people.
No, I think they would have understood that I was really just making fun of the ignorance of my wife and I and not making fun of Australia. And if they didn't understand that, then screw them. That's what we have New Zealand for, is Brad. Just kidding. How you doing?
See, Paul got out the spring shovel a little early. He's just digging his flower bed. Mm-hmm. Just keep on digging.
Right. 6 feet deep is what I'm told.
It's,
yeah.
But I would say we're pretty good at mixed messages, and I will say we're just taken after Microsoft because for whatever reason, yesterday we talked about they're rolling out the NAG screen for Windows 7. And on that very same day, they said, hey, we're also making DirectX 12 available for Windows 7. Wow. I saw this. And
I know. I got to use my For Some Reason headline, which I enjoyed finally being able to do. It's so arbitrary that DirectX 12 is not in Windows 7, right? That was just a business decision. It was one of many things they were doing to try to drive people to Windows 10. And it just does. I hope everyone understands the hypocrisy of Microsoft adding it to Windows 7 now at the behest of a Blizzard, a game maker, and then saying, well, it's not as good as it is on Windows 10 because, it's like built into Windows 10. Yeah, it would have been as good if you built it into Windows 7 3 years ago, whenever it came out. Like, it's just arbitrary.
Yep.
And honestly, is there anyone on earth who believes that Windows 7 isn't a smaller, leaner, faster system than Windows 10 overall, and that this thing, in fact, should be better on Windows 7 than it is on Windows 10?
I think it'd be very easy to make the argument that Windows 7 is easier to manage than Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because you install it and you just deal with Patch Tuesday, which you've been doing for umpteen number of years, as opposed to Windows 10, where you're dealing with Windows updates every twice a year, and then all the updates that come.
Talk about spinning a wheel. Yeah, you never know when you're going to get an update on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, great. I guess they're going to work with other game makers have already approached them, or maybe they approached the other game makers. I don't know, but
there's got to be some bigger motive here. That's the only thing, but I don't quite know what it is. The only thing I could think of is that maybe they've been working on this for so long that it's like, okay, it's finally kind of ready. Maybe we should just ship it. And this was supposed to ship like 18 months ago or something.
It's goofy timing. I mean, I don't follow this too closely, but you'll see these statistics come up out of Steam every once in a while, and they'll look at their user base and say X% are on Windows 10 or on Windows 7, and Windows 7 Windows 10, I believe, surpassed Windows 7 and then didn't and then did again, and but I think the point is probably that they're pretty close.
Yeah,
and you could imagine gamers would be one of those audiences that might just stick with Windows 7, a big chunk of them. Stick with the gaming PCs they already bought and are upgraded or whatever they're doing. But yeah, this is a system that's going to exit support in 10 months.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Very strange. The timing on this is bizarre. But it's not like they're about to release a brand new web browser on this platform either, so it's not that weird. Yeah. Enjoy your 6 months of Microsoft Edge usage.
Yeah, so when I don't 6 months might be generous because
it is. No, it's.
I mean, there'll be
generous.
we know it's going to come to like an insider program first, probably to like fast ring users or something like that. Would make sense.
Probably only on Windows 10 at first, by the way.
Yeah, right. Like I don't see them launching a beta on Windows 7 of this. So it's
okay. So here's the rationale, though. They are in fact going to support Windows 7 for 3 more years for the biggest enterprise customers.
True.
And those are the guys that they want on Edge, because Edge is a step off the cliff of Windows 10. It's if you can get on Edge first, it will ease your transition to Windows 10. So
yeah,
I think that's literally the only reason they're doing this.
I'm sure they'll just be crystal clear about all this at Build.
Have you ever been to build, Brett? I just.
It's a great show for wanting to learn more questions you didn't know you had.
It's also a great show for Microsoft to announce things that they will then never discuss for 11 more months. And then suddenly, one day, you're going to wake up and Android app mirroring is available on Windows 10 in the Insider Preview
When
for
did they
some
announce
reason.
that? They announced that in the fall.
Oh, that wasn't at Build? Oh, maybe
No. That
at,
was, but that was still
okay.
they announced that at the Surface headphone event.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
So
that
I mean, it's
wasn't
not
that
like
one.
it was like
Okay.
last month, but I mean, it was
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
6 months ago, 5 months ago, something like that.
Sorry, I get with all the broken promises, I just get lost. You know, who can keep track of it? You're right. That wasn't that long ago. Actually, the surprising thing about it, honestly, is that they are putting it into the next version of Windows 10 this late in the game.
Yeah.
We just had, I believe, 2 builds in a row. Well, maybe it wasn't 2 in a row, but we've had at least a few builds recently where there have been no new features, right? Which usually indicates that we're winding this thing down. I don't know. What kind of testing are they going to be able to do on this feature? It seems kind of strange to me, but.
Well, it also raises the question of, but why? I mean.
Yeah. Oh, plus, this is the build that removed the desktop watermark, right? I mean, there is every indication that this thing is being close to being finalized. And not from a perspective of how many people actually use it, but it's a fairly major, I guess it's just an app feature. Maybe that's the deal, because it's a feature of your app or your phone. Maybe that explains it, because they can develop it separately from the OS.
You know what also might make sense, maybe, is that it's actually a feature for Windows Lite.
Yeah, a way to get Android apps on Windows Lite. That could be.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Also, you may recall the recent unexplained low-level gaming, blah, blah, blah stuff that there were, this might be related to that too. I mean, when you think about it, game streaming versus application streaming, we're talking about the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a system that can handle streaming games and you're not losing frames and so forth, you can stream anything. I mean, streaming apps is going to be easy. And maybe that was the infrastructure work, maybe they're related. And then this, of course, is just a front-end application or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm really giving them way more benefit of the doubt than they deserve. I just, the way they dropped this on us, it's just kind of weird. But
I mean, I guess there's it's better, I guess, to have it than not have it. But the only reason I see you use it is that there's an app that's on your phone that is not available, I guess, on the PC in any capacity. And you want access to it.
But you have to, I don't know. Have you looked at it yet?
No, I don't have, well, I don't know if I have an Android phone, Bluetooth LE.
Right.
I don't know if my Nexus does or not.
I just ran the app for the first time in a while, and it has a new kind of inboxing or whatever you want, or what do you call that? Onboarding screen, and it says get instant access to your phone's photos, texts, and more. Select your phone, Android, iPhone, and I don't know. Is one of the choices.
Well, it was easy. They just renamed Windows Phone.
If you click "Well, I don't know," it should be like, "We're sorry, this app is not compatible."
Yeah, I guess that's
it's just not going to work. That's funny.
Yeah. Something else that came across the wire today that actually I'm pretty interested to see how this shakes out. Spotify came out with a big publication. They are complaining officially, in official capacity in the EU, against Apple, specifically their deal with Apple Music and subscription services in the App Store. Because right now the way it works is if you're using Spotify on iOS and you're paying that way, Apple gets 30% of Spotify's revenue, and their argument is that Apple is getting an unfair advantage because their Apple Store music, or Apple Music I should say, is able to come in at effectively a lower price point with higher margins because they don't have to pay that what they call the Apple tax. And so this is... A lot of companies have been complaining about this and kind of, when you meet them, they're like, yeah, and then there's that Apple tax that we got to deal with. And so this is going to be real interesting because this is the first company that's going like on an official making a plate to a government agency about this. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah, a lot of people who don't like Apple will complain to me that Apple should be brought up on antitrust charges, to which I always reply, Apple does not have a monopoly in any market. There's nothing you can do about that. That's in the United States, right? Antitrust law works completely different. Well, not completely, but it works differently in Europe than it does in the United States. Here, the focus is on damage to consumers. And in Europe, it is damage to competitors. And you can make a case, as Spotify has done very well, that Apple is harming its own partners to advance its own services in the ways that you just described, and in ways that are obvious to anyone. Amazon very specifically with its own apps, the Amazon app, the Kindle app, the Audible app, does not provide a store inside of the app on iOS because Apple will take 30% of everything they make.
Right.
That's kind of highway robbery, right? Netflix very recently, I don't know, sometime in the past 2-3 months, I think, dropped the ability to sign up or change the tier of your plan from within the iOS app because they were giving, I think it was hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe. I don't remember the exact figure, but some enormous amount of money to Apple every year for nothing, and there are always going to be people who kind of defend this practice. I mean, Apple has provided a platform for these people to sell and blah, blah, blah. But the issue is what you just said. They're selling services that compete with these apps and, Apple Music very specifically. You may remember, I think it was this past fall, Spotify had a promotion where people who were on Spotify Premium could just go to a page and say, I want this thing, and they would send you a Google Home Mini. Yep. So I did it, knee jerk, whatever. I don't need it. In fact, it's still sitting in a box here. But in their next quarterly revenue announcement, they noted that they lost X amount of dollars from doing this. It was kind of a goodwill gesture. They were trying to keep people in the ecosystem, et cetera. If they use music through the Google Home Mini, they'll use Spotify more often, blah, 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 whatever. That costs them money. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I guess, they announced a deal with Hulu where they're going to, and we talked about this on the podcast, where they're going to provide the ad-supported version of Hulu for free to Spotify Premium users. Well, that's not just a get. Like, someone's paying for this, right?
Right.
I know it's possible that Hulu gave them a deal, but the ad-supported version of Hulu costs what, $6 a month or $8 a month or something? Like, someone's paying Hulu for this. It's not just doing it for free, So in some future revenue announcement, you can look for it. You'll be able to see it. They will reveal that they lost so much money because they had this Hulu deal. Well, here's the thing. They're not just doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They see what Apple's about to do, and they feel the need to have a competitive offering.
Yep.
That's why they're doing this. Apple is costing them money. And they're doing it. And by the way, competitors cost each other money. It's perfectly legal. It's perfectly fine. But they control the platform, and they have what Spotify is saying, and I agree, is an illegal benefit because they're disadvantaging their competitors.
I tend to agree. They have a 30% benefit on their own platforms, which means that they can offer services at a better value, potentially, or higher margin, pick whichever one's better for you.
It's worse than 30%, right? Because 30% is the upfront thing. That's what you see. But there's another advantage because the cost, the R&D and the actual cost of launching a platform like Apple Music and then making it happen gets subsumed by the iPhone, which generates, tens and tens of millions, billions or whatever revenue every year, whatever it is. It becomes part of the value chain of the Apple ecosystem. They don't have to make that thing work as a standalone business. It would never work as a standalone business. And that's the deal. They're not charging the Apple Music team 30% every time Apple Music signs up a user.
Right.
But also the startup costs of that thing have been absorbed, right? That would be a losing. It's just like Xbox at Microsoft, really. It would have. No standalone company could have withstood the startup costs of that thing. It's impossible, and it's just because of the success of the iPhone. So they're actually benefiting it on both ends, if you will, right? There's the upfront 30% difference, but there's also the back end thing because, Spotify was something that kind of slow boiled over time. It required investors. It was a big, infrastructure. They got to do deals with labels and all this. It's expensive, and their costs keep going up. Their costs go up when people like Apple enter the business. Some might say, it's a strong term, but illegally enter the business, right?
Yeah.
Just like they did with ebooks when they did the iBook store, and they got sued for that and lost.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Apple's TV subscription service comes
Yeah.
at the end of this. Well, not even the end of this month, like 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I
Less than
haven't
that.
read through this completely, but there was a Bloomberg report I just saw that said that this thing's going to launch mostly with third-party content, right? They're trying to sign up all the HBOs and everybody.
Mhm.
And we're not really going to see a lot of Apple stuff until later in the year. And I think we're all looking forward to the Muppet Disney Fest that's going to be. But the question here is whether they can be competitive, right? And let me just think about this before I say it. But yeah, so think about a company like, is this true? Yeah, like Netflix started as, they were a DVD delivery system at first, right?
Mhm.
Like, right. So, this is a company that made its own little transition to the cloud. I mean, think about the multiple years it took and how expensive that must be. That they deal with the same kind of content licensing issues that Spotify does. They have decided correctly. In this case, it turns out to go into a like independently created content direction where they're funding new shows of their own, and a lot of them are really high quality. So that's really worked out. It's super expensive, This thing Apple's making, again, it's just like Apple Music. It's not possible for this thing to start. It could not, as an independent entity, ever hope to come to fruition today. It only works because Apple is sitting on $130 billion or whatever it is.
It's way more than that. It's like 240 something.
Yeah, some gross amount of money. So
Yeah.
they could fund anything they want.
Mm-hmm. Even a car.
It's an investment.
Startup.
Yes. And it will all succeed. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Well, this one, the car thing doesn't feed off of the iPhone. That's the problem. So, these
say
little
that
businesses.
until you find out the car computer is the iPhone.
Yeah, you have to actually put the iPhone into the dashboard for it to work. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. But cars are very expensive. I mean, milking your customer base with services is smart, but it works because the iPhone is so successful, right? So, I think this thing will succeed in ways that many people would, I think, correctly label as unfair.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. This is going to be resolved over a very lengthy amount of time. Hopefully, Spotify's still around when it does get resolved. But these things take a long time.
That's true. The two-edged sword that is the EU and specifically the European Commission is that they have shown themselves to be very open to moving aggressively against U.S. tech firms. However, it's also the EU, so everything gets mired down in procedure, and it will take years and years for anything to come out of this. Yeah, that's a fact.
That is a fact. Well, other things that happened yesterday, Microsoft announced the Master Chief Collection is coming to PC. It is going to be rolling out. They didn't give an official launch date, but I bet we're going to learn a lot more on Sunday about that. It's also going to start with Halo Reach and walk through the chronological stuff. It's not going to be like a giant dump like they did last time on Xbox with all of the games.
It's fair to say that the original release of the Master Chief Collection, was a massive dump. Yes.
Yeah. They're going to remaster the Master Collection is what they're doing.
The remaster Chief Collection.
They also announced the translucent white controller, which Paul had a very funny joke on Twitter about.
That said, I like it too. It looks awesome.
It does.
Because we're gonna settle because like we've been waiting for this Elite controller, and every once in a while, not every once in a while, it seems like every month or two, there's like new controllers, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them are interesting, right? I mean, some of them they're nice looking, and there was a black version of this that's out still in the market now. But the white one in particular is it's translucent. You can kind of see inside it a little bit. It's nice.
Yeah, you can see its soul as you're playing.
Right. It's like one of those fish that lives at the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. 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 And so those were kind of the big. Oh, the other thing too was they showed off xCloud, which they hyped this up, and then it was they were like, we're going to talk more about xCloud, and then all they did was they had what is her name? Because she just tweeted at me. Julia Hardy, I believe, is who it was. Mm-hmm. Sitting there playing it, which you can see this was the demo. And I got to tell you, the demo looked really odd. She says the reason why she tweeted me is because I tweeted, I was like, was this pre-recorded or something? Because it didn't look normal.
Well, here's the thing. So so as soon as I saw that picture, I thought, here we go. Because it's Forza. And there's something about racing games. They just... they're the easiest. I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but when it comes to streaming and so forth, like, or just graphics quality on a console. There's something about racing games where they get to amp up both the frame rate and the quality of the graphics. Like, it just works. There's something about it. You can play Forza on your Xbox today to see what I mean. It's just, it almost looks better than it should. Like there's kind of a weirdness to it. So when I saw that that's what they were streaming, I was like, because honestly, it's not hard to make a demo where you're just streaming off of a console wirelessly. They have this technology, right? In fact, just today, I think I'm still only partially through all the stories today. It's been kind of nuts this morning, but I believe they released a software application for the Xbox One that lets you stream PC games to your Xbox so you can play them with your controller, right? And so it's the same remote, the thing we were talking about earlier, where if you can get the game to work, everything else is easy.
Yep.
Well, the first step to getting racing games first. It's always racing games. Like, a platformer would be easier, but of course it wouldn't look as good, right? So a racing game is that perfect combination of the performance and graphics quality, and then of course the speed of it. It's kind of a good demo. It's like the obvious demo. And but when I saw that, I thought this thing's not ready. Like, it's just not ready. And so we'll see. I was very amused to see Microsoft at the Xbox level do what Microsoft does at the corporate level when they talk about their quarterly earnings, because it's always like cloud, and then you look at the businesses and you're like, yeah, Windows made more money than everything again. Interesting.
Yep.
And so the way they're talking today is like, look, this isn't going to replace the Xbox or anything. Don't worry about that. Like, these things are going to coexist, and you're going to be able to move from one device to another and do all this crazy stuff. And you're like, yeah, okay, but it's going to replace it, right? I mean, like, you're managing a transition, right? You can't kill your current business by overhyping the future thing. But the truth is, yeah, consoles and PCs, especially gaming PCs, will be around, but they will be the vast minority of the way that people play games, just like actually they are today, right? I mean, that's just a fact. And they're talking about, like, sometimes you want to have like a 4K display and HDR, and Xbox One is great for that. It's like, yeah, so is my smartphone, idiot. Like, there are more 4K, or at least in striking distance of 4K HDR phones in the world than there are Xboxes connected to TVs. I mean, It's by an order of magnitude. So I don't know. I appreciate what they're trying to do. They have to say this. It's marketing. They can't kill the current business, like I said, but everything is riding on this. Like, this is the future of the Xbox platform, right?
Yep.
And I think that includes consoles too. I mean,
I agree too. I mean, it's not gonna happen overnight, but that's where they want it to go. Microsoft, there's nothing Microsoft would love to be able to do is to actually sell you a console box that is basically empty and just connects to a cloud service.
Yep. Yeah, I think ultimately, if this system works as well as it should, what you'll see is a system where an Xbox or a PC, and they should be identical in this regard, would be able to download the game to the device while it was streaming, and then provide better experiences going forward, because now it's kind of there. I think that would be the one advantage over a phone or a set-top box, wherever else they're going to put this stuff. But a lot of people would kind of point to like the offline thing as the other, as the big deal. And I don't answer this question literally, but I mean, I don't mean to say like no one does, but who plays offline games? What are you talking about? Like, the vast majority of gaming today on any system, you're online. When my wife plays Word with Friends on her phone, she's not doing it offline on a plane. She's doing it online, literally in real time. When I play Call of Duty, I don't play there's no single player campaign actually in the new one, but no one was really playing that. They're playing online against other people. When you play the game you play, you're playing online against other people. That's what people do. I know there's not like awesome internet everywhere. Obviously, I know that, but this is where it's going. It's where it is now, and this is where all the growth is. It's not about an offline gaming experience. It just isn't. I don't mean to say it won't be there. It just won't be, isn't today and won't be in the future the big deal.
I tend to agree.
Thank God.
Yeah. Well, because Google's going to announce what they hope is a gaming service that lasts for more than 2 years before they shut it down next week.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and there'll be other things. We don't know. Who knows what Sony's going to announce? I mean, a lot of the expectation is around a PlayStation 5, which of course we will see, but Sony has to announce something along the online services front. And if you look at what they're doing now, their analog to Xbox Game Pass, which I think is called PlayStation Now, is much more aligned with this future we keep talking about from Microsoft than is Xbox Game Pass. It's a streaming service. You can stream those games to your PC, right? They're already doing this. Now, on the PlayStation platform, of course, way more people are using PlayStation consoles, right? I mean, that's the nature of the business. But again, we're looking at the future. So I think there's a play there for Sony as well, and it will be interesting to see how they evolve that to match what Microsoft's doing.
Yep. You got anything else for today?
I got a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be screwed up because of Windows Weekly, but like I said, there's some news about the Apple service. There's some news about that Windows game to Xbox streaming thing. I'm going to try to get to that if I can. So lots of stuff going on today. What about you?
Well, I don't have to bleep out anything on this episode or make peace with large countries. So
let's spin the wheel again. Who comes under the radar? The Czech Republic, which I will still call Czechoslovakia, because screw those guys.
We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow.